Hi and welcome. My name is Tolan and I'm the co-founder of Productivity Meet. In this video, we're going to look at 14 keyboard shortcuts, which will allow you to extend your selection within Microsoft Excel. We'll look at things like extending your selection by one cell to the right by using Shift Right, or the keyboard shortcut of extending your selection to the last cell on the right with Ctrl Shift Right. Or we'll look at extending your selection one page up or one page down with Shift Page Up, Shift Page Down, as well as extending your selection to the first cell in the worksheet with things like Control Shift Home. So join us in this video for a series of 14 keyboard shortcuts which will allow you to more efficiently extend your selection within Microsoft Excel. All right, let's get started. If you want to follow along, go ahead and go to the description section of this video where you will find a link to download the exercise file we're using. Here we will be using Apple Inc. Income Statement 2015. So, all right, now we looked earlier in the course or in this series of how to make a selection. We could do things like Shift left click in order to make a selection here. Let's say that we wanted to select this revenue here for these 4 quarters. Now, if we did that, we could extend our selection to the right by using the keyboard shortcut Shift Right arrow. So Shift Right arrow will extend our selection by one cell at a time to the right. Now, once we have that selection, if we wanted to decrease that selection, we would press Shift Left arrow. Now, the reason moving the selection to the right with Shift Right arrow will extend it is because our active cell was here and we move the selection this way. So Control Right arrow will extend, and then while we still have that selection, Control Left arrow will remove one cell from our selection at a time. Now, if we were to do the opposite, so if we were to start our active cell here and then select going to the leftwards direction, then pressing Shift Left arrow will extend our selection, and Shift Right arrow will decrease our selection. So it really depends on which direction you went when you made your initial selection. So on a very similar vein, if you wanted to extend your selection up one cell, you could do this by pressing the Shift Up arrow or decrease it by Shift Down arrow. Now, if we were to have our active cell here at the top of our selection and then make our selection going downwards, pressing Shift Down arrow would extend our selection one cell at a time, and Shift Up arrow would deselect it. So again, it would really depend if and when you make a selection where your active cell is. If your active cell is going up and therefore it's at the bottom, pressing Shift Up arrow will extend. Whereas if you have your active cell here in cell D14, you make a selection, then pressing Shift Down arrow will extend. All right, so imagine a scenario where you want to extend your selection to everything in this specific range. So we want to extend it to the last cell in this range at the end of this column, column F. Now we could use our mouse and the Control key, but instead let's use the keyboard shortcut of Control Shift Right arrow. Control Shift Right arrow will extend everything to our right. Let's imagine we are here in cell E6. We want to select everything to our total revenue here in column A. We would press Control Shift Left arrow. So keyboard shortcut of Control Shift Left arrow and then Control Shift Right arrow are super useful, particularly when combined with what we just looked at. So let's extend our selection to the end of this area with Control Shift Left arrow. And let's say we don't want to include total revenue, then while still having our selection made, we would press and hold the Shift key and then the right arrow, and we would decrease our selection by one cell. So therefore, we've highlighted all of these individual cells, which in my mind is pretty useful. Now we can do similar things by extending our selection to the bottom by pressing Control Shift Down arrow. Or let's say that we were at the bottom, we want to select everything between here and the top, we would press Control Shift Up arrow. Maybe we don't want this first cell here selected, we would press Control Down arrow. and we can decrease our selection one at a time. We can also use it in combination, so we can press Ctrl Shift right arrow and then Ctrl Shift down arrow, or Ctrl Shift right arrow, Ctrl Shift down arrow, and then the Shift key, we can decrease one column at a time. There's lots of different things we can do with these keyboard shortcuts. So if you wanted to select, say, this area here, and then you wanted to extend your selection by one page to the right, you would press Shift, I guess, page down would allow you to select it one to the bottom. And then if you wanted to do the opposite, let's say you had this selection here and you wanted to select it one screen up, you would press Ctrl Shift page up, or rather Shift page up. Now, if you wanted to make your selection between here and everything in the first cell in that column, you could press Shift Home or Shift End and then activate the end mode. That too would work. Lastly, if you want to extend everything between here and your home cell, you would press Ctrl Shift Home, or here in your last cell in the selection, Ctrl Shift End. If you wanted to toggle selection mode on and off, you would press F8. Now, F8 will activate extend selection, which would allow you to basically just extend your selection from wherever you are. And earlier in the course, we looked at Shift F8, and pressing Shift F8 will add to your selection. So adding to your selection is slightly different than extending your selection. So let's say that we wanted to extend our selection. This is our selection. We press F8, and we can easily extend our selection. So that, in essence, is the series of keyboard shortcuts for extending your selection within Microsoft Excel. Now, if you have comments, questions, ideas, tips, tricks that you'd like to share, go ahead and post them in the comment section of our course. You can also give us feedback by giving us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That would be really helpful in gauging how useful or unuseful you think this content is. So if you're interested in continuing forward in this series, in the next video, we'll look at how to make a special selection. We'll look at things like launching the Go-To dialog box with Ctrl-G, selecting all the cells with comments with Ctrl-Shift-O, or selecting different items in tables, as well as selecting precedence and differences, or even dependence. So join us in the next video, and we will see you again soon. Cheers.